Welcome, 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 everyone. We're so happy to see you here. This is an event we're very, very, very much looking forward to. So we'll give you a couple of minutes to come in and get settled. As you come in, if you could just tell us, jump into the chat and tell us who you are and where you're from. And I don't know if you have a favorite book of the year, Tom. Maybe we want to hear that as well, since this is favorite book of the year
Yeah,
night.
absolutely. Feel free to let us know in the chat.
Our editorial director, Tom Donadio, and I are thrilled to welcome you to our end of year reviewer event, where 8 Book Reporter reviewers are joining us to share two of their favorite books that were released for the first time in 2025. Two other reviewers, Ray Palen and Kate Ayers, can't join us tonight. They've appeared in previous programs. And we have Ray's presentation on video that we will bring up towards the end. And Tom is then going to share Kate's picks with you. So we will have their selections covered. It's worth noting that this year we reviewed more than 650 books. And that is the same number that we did last year. And we're so proud that we bring that many reviews to you on an ongoing basis. We're also really proud that our reviewers hail from all over the country. This is not bi-coastal. This is all over the country. And we really pride ourselves on that because we feel like we're talking to America and we've got authors from all over, reviewers from all over America having those conversations with our readers. So in the chat, if you could jump and let us know who you are, where you're from, and if you want to share your favorite book that was published this year, we'd love to hear that as well. Now, for tonight's event, please note that we're not going to do Q&A. We're just going to do chat. We'll take a look at that later on, but we're not going to be doing Q&A as the evening goes on. So, Tom, I think you're going to take it away with our first reviewer.
Absolutely. And yeah, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us. We look forward to this every year, so it is so great to have you all with us. So we're going to kick off the festivities with Norah Piehl. Norah is currently the executive director at Litquake, San Francisco's literary festival. She previously worked for 10 years at the Boston Book Festival, overseeing their day-to-day operations, and was the director for literary programs at the Bay Area Book Festival. Norah is a former children's bookseller and has also worked in the publishing industry for both university and trade publishers. Norah, great to have you with us.
Thank you so much. This is always one of my favorite events of the year for sure.
Absolutely great to have you back after not being with us last year. So it's great to have you with us this year.
Yeah, totally. So I just jump in? I know I'm the
Jump
first
in.
one.
Go
Absolutely,
for
All
it.
yeah.
right. My first book is a novel, The Road to Tender Hearts by Annie Hartnett. And I'm just a huge fan of this novelist. She's somebody who I wish people were more familiar with.
Mhm.
The Road to Tender Hearts is her third novel. And I think it's kind of a perfect novel for gifting or to take along during your own holiday travels because it is a road trip novel. Hartnett's a super gifted storyteller. She's also one of those writers who's extraordinarily funny, but also has kind of a darker, edgier side. In fact, she shared that her motivation for The Road to Tender Hearts was to write a really broadly, almost hilariously comic novel about some of life's worst tragedies. And I think it's safe to say that she has succeeded. So the center of this novel is 60-something New Englander PJ Halliday. He's just won the lottery, but is drinking away his millions because he's pining over his ex-wife and also suppressing memories of a personal tragedy. But when he learns that his old high school flame has been recently widowed, he decides on a whim to hop in a okay, it's stolen car and drive all the way to her retirement home in Arizona in order to woo her. But just as he's headed out the door, he learns that he's become the reluctant guardian to two tweens who are the grandkids of his estranged brother who's been recently deceased. So these two kids are precocious and they're sarcastic, and they are also reeling from their own shocking recent tragedy, which left them orphaned overnight. So PJ knows he has responsibilities now, but he also doesn't want to lose his shot at love. So he decides to bring the kids along for the ride and also enlists his unemployed daughter to help care for them along the way. So this journey, also, I love I don't have a copy of the book in front of me, but it has a lovely hand-drawn map in the end papers. I'm always a sucker for an end paper map, so that's a little feature to look for. It leads this makeshift family to a colorful cast of wacky characters, lots of outlandish situations, and also a cat who might possibly be the Grim Reaper. So this obviously has a quirky premise, but it's also just an extraordinarily thoughtful novel about caretaking, about grief, about second chances, and it's all done without any sentimentality, which I really appreciated. I completely adore this novel, and I hope it leads more people to discover Annie Hartnett and as well as her backlist, which is also worth seeking out. Her previous novels are Rabbit Cake and Unlikely Animals. My second selection for tonight is an essay collection. I do have that one here with me. It's called No Less Strange or Wonderful, and it's by the author A. Kendra Green. So A. Kendra Green is a writer, but she's also a visual artist, and she also has one of the coolest gigs that I had never known existed until I read this book. She spent most of her career as a writer in residence at either zoos or museums of various kinds, mostly natural history museums, which just sounds like such a cool job. She also has got a real knack for crafting book titles. Her previous book was called The Museum of Whales You Will Never See, and it was inspired by Iceland's incredible variety of really weird museums, most of which she has visited in the context of her work. So this new book is also an essay collection. Its topics are a little bit more diverse in scope, but they're all in some way a tribute to the value of curiosity and of wonder. So, given her background with museums and zoos, it's not surprising that many of the essays focus on history, on animals, the natural world. They're really wide-ranging and always quite delightful. One of my favorite essays, for example, is a meditation on extinction, museums, kleptomania, and the US bicentennial. These essays do have real range. Another seasonally appropriate one focuses on an urban legend about a Dallas area Ebenezer Scrooge impersonator who would show up at Christmas parties throughout the Dallas area, apparently, which then leads Green into an extended consideration of Dickens' variety of Christmas stories. The book is really beautifully designed, and I can show you. Unsurprisingly, since the author is also a visual artist, it's also heavily illustrated with some of her own artwork and also archival images that she uses in interesting ways. So this makes a kind of a great gift for anyone on your list who enjoys works that are just difficult to define, but really full of surprises. It's a really delightful work and worth seeking out.
Great. They both sound interesting, and they're both books that were not on my radar, except for you talking about them, reviewing them. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you,
Of course.
Nora.
Thanks for having me.
And to readers who or viewers who are sitting there saying, will you get a list of these books? We didn't have them in advance for you, but we will send them with the video follow-up after this. We'll have the video available early next week. And if we don't have it by the end of this week, and we'll send the list of the books along at the same time.
We're going to be
So
sending the list of books, the titles, authors, and then also covers of all the books. So you'll have all that in one place.
right. And what we will also have is, besides have the covers of all the books, we will have the list of what the rest of the reviewers are talking about as well. So a couple of people were saying, do we have that in the chat? We don't have it at this time, but that's what we'll be doing. We will be sharing this list. So, and I think somebody mentioned holding the books up. Some of the reviewers have access to the books. Some of them read them earlier and they don't have access anymore. So it's not like we're forgetting that. It's just that some people don't have the books. So I just want to give these I'm reading the chat as we go along, trying to make sure that we've got all the bases covered.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Our next guest is Rebecca Munro, who is a senior project editor at W.W. Norton and Company and the co-founder of the Peterborough, New Hampshire Silent Book Club chapter. I love the Silent Book Club idea, as well as a freelance proofreader for several publishers. Prior to joining Norton, she was the editorial director of our Teen Reads and Kids Reads sites. And when she isn't reading, she enjoys snuggling with her husband and her Pomeranians, testing out new hot sauces, and clicking her knitting needles together. And I am so happy to be able to see you again, Rebecca. We all enjoyed working with you, and it's nice to have you back with us tonight. So, one of the books you're talking about is one of my favorite of the year. So, let's let you get started.
Always
All
great to
right.
see you, Rebecca, by the way.
Good to see you, Tom. Up first, we have Broken Country by Claire Leslie Hall. And as Carol said, this is one of her favorites of the year because she's always right and it's amazing. In this book, we meet a married couple, Beth and Frank Johnson. They have this very passionate love. They're very strong, they're very sturdy. But 2 years ago, they lost their young son. They live on a farm. Life is full of tragedies there and a lot of hard work, a lot of the beautiful pastoral as well. So there's a really nice dichotomy there. But even though they've moved on from the death of their son, they've stopped talking about him. And it's something that really bothers her as a mother. As they, kind of get past this moment, her first love returns to town. He is this hotshot celebrity author, very opposite of her farmer husband, and he has a young son about the same age. She is secure in her marriage, like I said, but she does start to kind of get involved with this man and his young son, and her husband is forced to ask the question that everyone dreads, should I be worried? She's pretty positive no. But he's not just asking about her potentially falling in love with her first love again. He's asking about her connection to his son because it's starting to take on a eerie edge where she's kind of conflating memories and returning to her grief in an unhealthy way. Now, I'm going to read you the first line because it goes, "The farmer is dead. He is dead, and all anyone wants to know is who killed him." So, we have a dead child, we have grief, we have first love, old love, and now we have murder. It would be a huge disservice to the brilliant Claire Leslie Hall to tell you who is dead and why and who has killed them. But the way that she weaves this murder mystery with the grief, with the pastoral, and the back and forth of the pull of your first love and the sturdy, sturdy foundation of this man you've built a life with, it's stunning. She really, really plays with opposites, the brutality of farm life, but also the beauty of the pastoral, the pull of nostalgia, but the reality of what's right here. It's just stunning. And I really can't say enough about it without giving it away, but it's gorgeous. And if you have ever loved or lost someone, there's something for you in this book. It is so much greater than all the sum of its parts, which is a little of everything. So that is Broken Country by Claire Leslie Hall. Carol, how'd I do?
You did a brilliant job. I couldn't have done it at that as well. And just to let everybody know, she has two backlist titles that came out in August and September this year. One was called Pictures of
Pictures of
Pictures of
him.
Him, and the other picture was Before You Were Mine. The other book was Before You Were Mine. I
Did
highly
you
recommend. They're both out in trade paperback. I highly recommend them. If you read Pictures of Him, you will see strains of what happens in Broken Country. They're
I did
little
read
threads.
Before You Were Mine. It's also stunning, but very, very different. So I'm very eager to read the other one now.
Yeah.
And then up next, I have Wild Dark Shore by Charlotte McConaughey. Tom and Carol know I'm the least nature-loving person in the world, so it's kind of cuckoo bananas that all my books are naturey. Um, but this one takes us off the coast of Antarctica to Shearwater Island. Now, I love a book that teaches me something that I for sure was never going to learn on my own. So in this book, I learned about seed vaults, which are these places, usually in remote, very frigid climates, where they keep seeds of every plant on Earth, basically. There are, I think, 3 million seeds in this vault. And this family, the Salts, which sea salt, it's just funny, um, head by Dominic Salt, has been tasked with protecting this island, keeping it going for researchers, making sure the seeds are maintained, because if, heaven forbid, tragedy takes over the world or global warming or anything like that, we will be able to rebuild. But funding has been cut, and things are getting a little dire on the island. And Dominic is kind of grappling with this idea. He does feel a great obligation to protect the seeds, but also to protect his kids. And they're getting older, and they live alone with seals and penguins, and it's getting a little weird for them. And then a woman washes ashore. That doesn't happen in the Antarctic, just so you know. So This woman, it turns out, is the wife of one of the men who was there as a researcher, and she hasn't heard from him in just too long. Dominic tells her that he couldn't handle it, he left. But that doesn't quite track. But either way, they are stuck on this island together for 7 weeks until the final ship comes to take away the seeds and to kind of put an end to this really hopeful, beautiful thing because there's just no funding. Now, again, much like the duality of the pastoral here, there's a lot of brutally beautiful stuff in this. The whales washing ashore, but also the gorgeous penguins, flitting about. It's stunning, but it's also deeply sad because this beautiful, hopeful thing they've been doing there is coming to an end. And what does that mean? So, with all of that in mind, Dominic and the woman, Rowan is her name, kind of build this careful camaraderie because on an island like this, you always have to be working together or you're working apart. There's just no two ways about it. But they're both hiding things, and they both have very tragic histories with this island, some of which they don't even know the full stories about. So as they go back and forth and they wait for the ship to come, it's just Charlotte does beautiful things with nature. I think right now it's really hard to tell how informed to be and still maintain your sanity.
Mhm.
So whether you are completely tapped in and you are down at your compost center every week, or if you barely recycle, you will feel such a pull to nature in this and the beauty of it and the hopefulness that every little thing we do is helping. It's stunning, stunning, stunning. I am also a sucker for a found family novel, and the way Rowan bonds with his kids, who are just tragic, beautiful children. If you've ever had a mother, been a mother, you need to read this. You will connect with Rowan so much. This gave me my first book hangover of the year, which, if you are unfamiliar with the term, it is much like a drinking hangover, except from book. And it floored me. It's stunning, stunning, stunning. You don't have to be a nature lover because I'm extremely not. And yeah, these are my favorites. They're beautiful, affirming, hopeful, and they will just make you feel. And that's what we need.
Rebecca, you've got me wanting to read Wild Dark Shore. I'm telling you right now.
Absolutely. Excellent presentation.
Excellent. I somehow gave my copy away in a contest earlier this year.
Oh my
And I was
God,
like, this is the
Piehl.
book I want back. This is the book. Sometimes, when we're giving away Bookaccino Live, I'm like, oh my gosh, I've got to get this book. So thank you very much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you,
Thank you so
everyone.
much, Rebecca. All right, now next up is Harvey Freedenberg. Harvey practiced intellectual property law and litigation with a large Harrisburg, Pennsylvania firm before he retired in 2017. He's been working as a freelance reviewer since 2005 and is a member of the National Book Critics Circle. He also writes for BookPage, Shelf Awareness, and Kirkus Reviews. And he pointed out earlier today that he is going to be entering his 20th year reviewing for Bookreporter, which is absolutely amazing. Harvey, great to have you with us again.
Thanks, Tom. It's great to be here. My two books are both written by authors that I've admired for a long time, and it's taken both of them a while to produce these novels, so I wish they wrote a little bit faster. But they're both excellent novels. Similar in some ways, but of course very different. The first is a novel entitled The Gossip Columnist's Daughter by Peter Orner. He teaches creative writing at Brown. I know him primarily as a short story writer. I reviewed his short story collection, Maggie Brown and Other Stories, for Bookreporter a couple of years ago, and he's also an essayist. He has a couple of excellent essay collections. This is his third novel. It's based on a true story. It involves the death of a young woman by the name of Karen Kupcinet, or known as Cookie to her family and friends, who was an aspiring actress. And in November of 1963, a few days after the assassination of President Kennedy, her body was found in her apartment in Los Angeles. The case was never solved. There was dispute about whether this was a murder, whether she committed suicide as a result of a drug overdose. But her father was a very well-known gossip columnist, sort of if people remember Larry King. He was a sort of a Larry King before there was Larry King, named Irv Kupcinet. He wrote a column for many years for one of the Chicago newspapers and had a syndicated television show for a time. So he was quite well known in the world of entertainment. And the novel is written by a struggling novelist by the name of Jed Rosenthal, who's been trying to track this cold case for many years and really struggling to bring together the different elements of this story. And he has a connection, personal connection to this story because his grandparents were friends with the Cupsinets, very close friends. And as a result of this murder and the events surrounding it, that relationship ruptured. So as he's investigating the death of Karen Cupsinet, he's also excavating the relationship between his grandparents and the Cupsinet family and what happened there. So it's kind of a sensational true crime story, but integrated very beautifully with a moving family story. And he, as I said, he worked on this novel for 15 years. Anyone who's from Chicago or is familiar with Chicago life will find a lot of resonance in this novel. So that's The Gossip Columnist's Daughter by Peter Orner. The second novel is entitled The Antidote by Karen Russell. Again, she's primarily known as a short story writer. She has a couple of collections, St. Lucy's Home for Girls Raised by Wolves and Vampires in the Lemon Grove. And they're kind of offbeat short stories, but very entertaining. She did have a novel called Swamplandia that was published in 2012 that was a finalist for the Pulitzer Prize. So it's been 13 years since that novel was published, and it's well worth the wait. The Antidote, I actually reviewed that in January. And what happens sometimes is the books you review early in the year tend to get lost in the shuffle as the months roll by. I knew as soon as I closed the last page on that book or closed the electronic galley, unfortunately, I don't have a physical copy, that this was going to be on my list. And it was number one, and it has remained number one all throughout the year. It's set in Nebraska in the Dust Bowl in 1935 and starts with a day called Black Sunday, when a horrendous dust storm rolled through that area and caused incalculable damage. And of course, this was in the middle of the Depression when these farmers were already struggling, and this was a devastating blow to them. The two principal characters, although there are many characters and quite a few subplots to this novel, are a woman named Antonina, who is described as a prairie witch, and her practice is to collect memories from people. You can come to her basically and offload your memories, whether they're pleasant or painful memories, and she stores them in a vault. And if you want to reclaim these memories, you can go to her until the point in the novel where she realizes that she's lost these memories as a result of this dust storm and the events surrounding it. And then there's a 15-year-old girl named Dell who has lost her mother to a serial killer, living with her uncle who is a farmer. And for some reason, his farm is prospering, the one farm that's prospering amidst all of this devastation. It's really a striking blend of the vast and the intimate. So there are passages that deal with Native American history, with the settlement and the removal of Native Americans, with the economics of the Dust Bowl and the reason why it was suffering so much during the Depression. And it blends traditional storytelling with elements of magic realism. There's a photographer who comes out to the area to photograph this for the Roosevelt administration, and her involvement in this story brings in an element of magical realism, which is just amazing. It takes a while for all these strands to come together, but when they do, the payoff is really worth it. And it's a beautiful novel and a very meaningful one, I think, in our time. So those are my two. Peter Orner's The Gossip Columnist's Daughter and Karen Russell's The Antidote.
Isn't it fabulous though when the payoff does happen like that, and
Yes.
you're just seeing all this, and then it all comes together, and you're like, "Whoa, I can't believe that ended up happening. I didn't see all those different storylines. Where's it going to be?"
And she is an incredibly skilled writer, and I hope I don't have to wait 13 years for her next novel.
Isn't it? Some people it's just like, okay, let's pick up the pace. Pick up the pace.
And it really is saying a lot that a book that you read in January is still sticking with you with all the books that you read throughout the year, that this
Yeah,
is the one that
absolutely.
clearly stands out.
Definitely.
Thank you so much, Harvey. Great to see you again.
Yeah, thanks, Tom.
Thanks for
Thanks,
20
Carol.
years of reviewing too.
Yes, congratulations on that.
Our next guest for the evening is Bronwyn Miller, and Bronwyn has worked in publishing and the film TV world for the past 30 years. In addition to great writers and books, she's an avid fan of theater, live author readings, concerts, and podcasts. And she also is going to be talking about one of my favorite books of the year. So, Bronwyn, take it away.
Thank you. So great to see you both and everyone
Yeah.
here. 2025 was a great year for reading. It was really hard to narrow it down. I also was a fan of Wild Dark Shore too, but I decided for my picks tonight, I would do a fiction and nonfiction. That would be an easy way to break it down. And my fiction pick was The Correspondent, Virginia Evans, which is an epistolary novel. I was amazed to find out a debut. So it's a novel told in letters about this wonderful woman of a certain age named Sybil Van Antwerp, which is, I was like, I'm in, the name got me already. And she is a former lawyer and she's writing, she's always kind of expressed herself through letter writing. And we are privileged to get to read these letters. And it's so funny when I talk to people who've read it, everybody comes away with something different. So it's almost like the less I say about it, the better, then you can have your own experience. But there's a blurb on the top from Ann Patchett that says, "A cause for celebration." And I 100% couldn't agree more. It's just wonderful how you get to know this woman and her life and her career and family. And it deals with themes of, connection, disconnection, grief, loss, forgiveness, and all from her pen at her little cottage in Maryland. She's sending off missives to people in her family, people she used to work with, Joan Didion, Ann Patchett included. If she likes somebody's book, she sends them a letter and lets them know. And it's so touching. And I used to be a kind of snob about epistolary novels. I was like, do you just not have the skill to write a real novel? Like you got to do it in letters. This book shut me up on that point because you come away with such a great understanding of this woman's life and the richness of it, that she could do so much with so little, like with few words, was amazing. So I can't recommend this book enough. It just was so like, I don't want to say a gut punch, but like a heart punch in the best way. So I
And
definitely recommend The Correspondent by Virginia
to pull
Evans.
that book up, can you just hold it up a little bit more so we can see? Okay, this cover, if you look at like, if there's like what are the birds on the cover, the whole thing. I actually listened to it on audio, which is stellar because there's a multicast to the whole thing. But this book is a real word of mouth book. This did
Mhm.
not get a pick. This did not get a lot of reviews. There's an interview that I did with her that I would say we'll go take a listen to because this is the ninth novel. She wrote nine novels before this, and none were published.
That's
And
incredible.
this is the book that she sat in a closet and wrote. And she wrote this like from
Amazing.
the heart. I'm trying to get her to do our Bookaccino live book group because it's fascinating to hear like how she was developing all of this. Nine novels, nothing went anyplace, and this does. This book I picked up because our readers were telling me, have you not covered this book? And
Mhm.
they were all talking about it. And I was at a lunch today with some friends, and everybody was talking about how this is the word of mouth book. And we used to build books like that, and we don't do that anymore. We
No, my
rely on
sister-in-law told me to read it. She was a huge fan first, and months ago, and I finally got around to it. I'm like, what took me so long? It's brilliant.
exactly. And it came out in April. It did not hit the New York Times list until October. It has
Mhm.
moved up to number 4 this week on the list, which is amazing that this book has continued to go. So I'm jumping in here. It's
I'm
your
so
story,
glad though,
but
because I'm glad that some books still can benefit word of mouth.
word of
That
mouth
we're
because
not too big and too online.
the cover was not drawing me in. I couldn't understand why there are two
No.
birds on the cover. I still don't get the
Even
cover.
the title is like, oh, is it a reporter? Like even the title's kind of a little
But
vague.
probably the most talked about books by our readers and by other people out there. So I'm just jumping in with that. I usually don't jump in, but this is like, it was really interesting to see.
No, I'm
Built
so glad you
from
did. It's such
the
a
word up.
pleasure from start to finish. So I can't recommend it enough.
Yeah, Bronwyn, I'm really glad that you were able to cover this book for us. So really
Loved it.
appreciate that.
Loved it,
The
loved it, loved
audio,
it.
if you like audio, it's multi-character. And if it
That's
doesn't win an
smart.
award, I don't know why. I really don't know why, because it's stellar performances.
Oh, that's great. I'll
Um,
check out the audio
yeah,
next.
please
That's
do. Yeah.
wonderful. My nonfiction pick is The Carpool Detectives, Chuck Hogan. It's got the longest subtitle in history, so I had to write it down. A true story of four moms, two bodies, and one mysterious case by Chuck Hogan. Chuck Hogan's also the New York Times bestselling author of Prince of Thieves, which became the movie The Town with Ben Affleck and John Hamm. And this was so interesting. Again, this was a recommendation from my sister to told me to read this. And it's true crime about four suburban soccer moms who, at the beginning of the pandemic, one of them reads about this unsolved case, cold case from 15 years before in their area, which is Southern California. And she's a true crime fan, and she starts talking to other moms as they're like picking their kids up as schools are starting to close in 2020. And she just starts to mention it to a couple of her friends, and they're like, "Oh, I'm into true crime too. I want to hear all about it." So four of them get together and form this little group to start their own investigation. And they each have their own skills. One was a researcher, one was a writer, like, and they all pooled their skills and their knowledge together to work on this case. And they work with the retired police detective who's not really, he's kind of prickly, he's not really all that helpful, but it's incredible what they do to figure out this case. And it sounded when I was heard the pitch of it, I was like, this sounds like a limited series. The minute I finished, I contacted the agent. I'm like, this has got to be optioned. Paramount Plus is going to do a series of this. And it's if you like true crime and if you just like reading about, real people, especially that like moms can do anything. They can put their minds to it. They can solve a cold case. So I just thought the way that it was written was like a great thriller. So if you're into finding about like reading about investigations and thrillers, you'll love this. Carpool Detectives by Chuck Hogan.
I remember when I first read about this book, it did sort of scream like streaming series
Right
or
away, right?
film.
Yeah.
So absolutely.
Yeah, so Paramount Plus, that wasn't a big surprise, but I was like, oh,
Yeah.
it's gone already. Oh,
It's great to see that at some point down the road.
oh, absolutely.
Thank you so much,
Thanks so
Bronwyn,
much.
for
Thank
joining
Great to
us.
see you.
you.
Appreciate
So
it.
glad to be here. Thank you.
All right, and now we're going to be hearing from Pamela Kramer. Pam is retired after a career split between practicing law and teaching dual language students and gifted students. She enjoyed combining her love of books and her love of animals with her teaching. She was the national book reviewer for Examiner.com and a contributor to HuffPost. Now she reviews on her blog and on Bookreporter. In addition to recommending adult books, she loves reviewing children's books. She is very involved in animal rescue and will read almost any book about animals.
Oh,
Pam, great to have you with us again.
Thank you. Just a side note, I loved The Correspondent too. And when I did it for my book club, usually there's always a couple people who don't like the book you've read. Everyone loved that one. Everyone.
it was our first unanimous choice too. We've never had an unanimous choice. I was like, this is it. Yeah, wonderful.
All right. So I'm doing two books, but I just also want, this is a book that I don't think has gotten much
Mhm.
press, and it's really, really good. So I'm not going to talk about it, but just show it to you guys. It's really good.
Wayward Girls by Susan Wiggs.
Wayward Girls by Susan Wiggs. Yeah, very, very touching. Okay, I love Catherine Ryan Hyde. I love her books. I think she's a really neat lady. She does astrophotography. She rescues animals. Of course, I'm in with that. And a lot of her books, this one doesn't have an animal in it, but a lot of them do and do center around animals. This book I loved. I really loved it. And when I reached out to her, she admitted that it's her personal favorite too. It's about a boy named Michael who is in a firework accident when he's a child, and it's with his brother, and he's horribly scarred, but just on his chest. And his parents give him up. He's brought up in foster care and adopted, but the parents keep the brother. So his whole life, he feels like he's really not worthy of love because they kept the brother, but they didn't keep him. He's always kept his scars hidden. He won't go to the beach. He wears a t-shirt under his shirt because God forbid a button should open. Um, he's always apologizing to people for things. And one of the things she talks about is how we apologize all the time, even when we shouldn't. So when he goes to college, he shows up for this class on filmmaking that he wants to take, and he's early to the class. And the professor comments and says, "Oh, you're early." He says, "Oh, I'm sorry." And the professor says, don't apologize for things. You can't go through life apologizing. And as you read the book, you start thinking about all the things we say. I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. And we have nothing to apologize for. So that's just kind of a side part. But he goes into filmmaking, and he this professor that he meets is horribly scarred. But the professor is scarred on his face and his hands. And when some of the students stare at the professor and the professor sees them, they apologize. And he says, "You don't have to apologize. I am, you can look. Here I am. This is what I am. And it's okay to look." And so this guy kind of changes Michael's life, the professor's outlook, and becomes his mentor. But Michael decides to do a film about, well, what he writes up and puts in the student union is that he needs volunteers for a student documentary film. Do you have a lot of worry and stress about your body and your appearance? Call Michael. And then he gives the phone number. He figures it's going to be people who are scarred or horribly disfigured, but he gets calls from a huge range of people. One guy is a 103-year-old guy who was in the Olympics in his 1936, and he has a horrible regret. So his big regret isn't his body. It was that he shook Hitler. He's a Jewish guy, and he shook Hitler's hand, and he said, "I should have spit on him instead."
Mm.
And now he says he shouldn't have to be ashamed of his body now because he's 103 years old, and he should be happy that he lived this way, but he feels ashamed of it. Some women come up, and the range is amazing. And Michael starts to change how he feels about his scars and about people and their views of their own bodies and what they feel ashamed of. It's the way she writes. It's very touching. And I think it's brilliant. And what I really like too is the big messages that we should be able to say, "Here I am.
Mhm.
This is who I am. Here I am. If I'm 10 or 20 pounds overweight, if I don't put makeup on, if my hair is gray, here I am. It's me. It's okay." So for her author photo, it's a very, let's see, she doesn't wear a lot of makeup. The one on her website is her with absolutely nothing, just a cowboy hat and jeans. And it's just like, here I am. So
Without apology.
yeah, without apology. Exactly. So this book is really good. She did come out with another book this year, which is more about alcohol and Alcoholics Anonymous, the 12-step method. It's also good, but Michael Without Apology is really one of her best. My second book is Louise Penny's The Black Wolf. But before you can read this book, you really have to read this one. So you have to read The Gray Wolf first. All of her books, except for these two, all of them work as standalone novels. And I think I started reading her books starting with the 11th one. And I just haven't had time to go back and read the first ones, although I've been driving into Chicago lately, and it's an hour and a half to 2 hour drive sometimes. And so I've been listening to the first and second book on tape, which is kind of fun. But they all are pretty much standalone. They work, but not these two. This one ends on a cliffhanger. And so it's kind of frustrating. You're like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? And so then this one is the second one. And for those of you who have read them, they take place in this town called Three Pines. It's in Quebec. And it's this town where if you read it, we all want to go live there. There's a bistro. Everybody gathers at the bistro and they drink a lot. And there's a bakery next door where they have great bakery goods. And they're just all very close knit. But a lot of in the beginning, there's always a murder in Three Pines. Black Wolf is interesting because she wrote it, she finished it in 2024. She says in the prelude, she says, "I sent this to the publisher in September of 2024. And then we know what happened here in January of 2025. There was a change of administration. You would swear that she's psychic, that she knew what was going to happen, because this book, you read it and you just go, how did she know? How could she write about this? It's unbelievable. It's about they're based on a Cree legend about two wolves, but it's really about amoral politicians. It's about greedy corporations. It's about billionaires. And a lot of it is about the stupidity of people who believe these conspiracy theories. Like, one of the conspiracy theories in the book is that the Americans are putting tracking things into the Canada geese so that when they go back to Canada, we'll be able to see what they're doing up there. It's craziness. But she points out that there's no end to what gullible people will swallow. The book is brilliant. And what's really funny is part of it takes place in a real place. It's the Haskell Opera House, which is in, oh my gosh, I can't remember the name of the town. It's in Maine, and it's right on the border of Canada and the United States. And there's a line down the middle. There's a library. It's the Opera House and Library. And there's like a big black line down the middle, and half of it's in Canada and half of it's in the United States. Well, our recent administration decided to block it used to be that people would just go around to the American entrance and go in. But of course, now we don't let anybody into our country so easily. So that's been a problem. But when the book came out, she refused to come to the US to promote it. She's done a lot of the promoting at the Haskell House, Opera House, which is, I think, kind of neat. I just can't recommend it highly enough. The Inspector Gamache is the detective, and he's this just wonderful person. He's kind, he's thoughtful, he's brilliant, but he's compassionate. I loved it. I loved the series, and I really, really loved both of these. So.
And it's really nice when the author pulls it off again. Like, you're sitting there going, oh, she did it again. It was really good. It delivered well. It's always really nice. I see a number of people jumping in the chat and saying they couldn't get some of these books at their local library, or, if you can't get a book at your local library, ask them to get it. Ask what they can do. And it's definitely go out and request and say you heard about it. And you've heard about this was one of the Book Reporter reviewers' favorite books of the year, because there's so many books that are not bought by libraries, that there's an auto buy thing that will buy the Louise Pennies of the world. They'll buy the John Grishams of the world. But some of the other books you can't actually find. And it's just a reason to go out and say, hey, I'm really looking forward to reading this book. Can you get it into the system? And see what they say. The more you talk about books, the more you bring them to everybody's attention, the better off we're all going to be.
Absolutely.
Pam, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Pam.
Thank you. This is
Great
always
to
so
see
much
you.
fun.
And joining us now is Stuart Shiffman. Stuart is a lifelong avid reader. After serving 22 years as a state court judge in Illinois, he began a second career teaching and writing. He's written hundreds of reviews for Book Reporter, the Illinois Times, a Central Illinois newspaper, and several legal publications. His subjects include sports, history, biography, and legal novels. Welcome, Stuart. So good to have you here.
Well,
Hi,
thank you,
Stuart. Good to
Carol.
see you.
Thank you, Tom. It's great to be here again and to soak up all this information about books that I haven't read yet, but will probably be out getting in the very near future. I have two sports books tonight, and I want to apologize in advance for picking two sports books, but I will tell you, since we only get to pick two, I couldn't decide which of the two to eliminate, so I figured I would just do these two. And I realize a lot of people don't read sports books, but I also know that a lot of the people who are listening tonight have people on their gift list who are sports fans. And they may decide that one of these books would be a good one for either their football or baseball fan. The first book on my list, which I have right here, is American Kings, a biography of the quarterback by Seth Wickersham, who's a reporter for ESPN and the New York Times. This is what I like to call a contemporary sports book. And by that, I mean, it goes into a little bit more detail. It's not just a kind of a biography of one person. It's a biography about the position of professional football quarterback. And one of the premises, one of the questions that the book asks is, why is it that so many scouts and so many teams make terrible decisions when it comes to their quarterbacks? Why is it that every year in the NFL, in the first round of the draft, 5 or 6 college quarterbacks are selected, and only 1 or 2 of them even have any success? Why is it that a quarterback is great for 1 year and then stinks the next? Or why is it that a quarterback doesn't play for many years and then all of a sudden in his 30s becomes a star? And so the book goes into a lot of history of quarterbacks and histories of the position. It points out something very interesting as far as I'm concerned. Every year in the United States, there are 16,000 kids, 16,000 young boys in high school who are starting quarterbacks on their teams. In high school. Then they go through college, and by the time they graduate from college, probably less than 100 make it into the professional football ranks any given year. Wickersham talks about a lot of the things that are going on now in an attempt to actually develop football quarterbacks. If you want to be a quarterback and you start off in high school, chances are every summer you'll go to a quarterback camp if you're good. And if you succeed then and you get through high school, what kids are doing now, what young athletes are doing now, I should say, they're leaving high school early. They're getting their classwork done and getting their high school diplomas at age 16, sometimes age 17, so they can go to college. They can start college a half year ahead of other kids, other students, and get a half-year leg up in their football preparation. So it's become a very major part of their lives. And obviously, a lot of them don't even get out of high school because of injuries and some other things. The book also has a lot of great history, starting with perhaps one of the favorite parts of the book was the story about the first glamour boy quarterback. Some of you may have heard of him. Some of you may remember him. His name was Bob Waterfield. He was a quarterback on the West Coast for the Los Angeles Rams that started out in Cleveland, then moved to Los Angeles. But he became a glamour athlete because he married Jane Russell. And he was the first of many great quarterbacks. And a lot of them are mentioned in the book. And I'm a lifelong Chicago Bear fan and a suffering Bear fan. And things are very bad for the Bears. Most of you don't realize it, but in Chicago, our greatest quarterback was a fella named Sid Luckman, who played for the Bears in the 1940s. And even though that's now almost 75 years ago, Sid Luckman still has a lot of records for the Bear quarterback. So this is a great book for football fans, a lot of history, a lot of other information. And I really think football fans, if you have a football fan out there, he or she will enjoy it. My second book is a little bit more of a traditional book. It's called The Last Manager. It's written by John Miller, and it's the story of Earl Weaver. Now, a lot of you probably may not, if you're an Oriole fan, you know who Earl Weaver is or was, because he was the manager of the Orioles in the 80s and 90s. They won quite a few World Series. If you don't know who Earl Weaver is, you might have seen him on a sports broadcast at some point in time, because Earl Weaver was famous for the way he would argue with umpires. If you've not seen it, Google Earl Weaver umpire. Weaver would come out, he would be screaming and hollering. He would get right up in the umpire's face, and he would take his baseball cap and turn it around backwards so that he could get even closer to the umpires. And he would scream and yell at them, and then they would let him do it for a long time. And then they would finally say, "You're out of here, Earl," and he would leave the game. This book is a little bit more, as I say, it's more of a traditional book because it starts with Weaver's life when he was born in St. Louis. He was a pretty good high school baseball player. He signed a contract with the St. Louis Cardinals for in their minor leagues. He was paid about $300 a month. He played all the way through the minor leagues. He never really made it to the majors. And he was still a baseball lifer at that point in time, and he wanted to stay in baseball. So while he was in the minor leagues, he started coaching and still playing. He was coaching, and he was a very successful coach. And he finally made it to the major leagues with the Orioles when he was hired. A lot of people had never heard of him, but he became very successful. And even in those days when he worked in baseball, it was a different time. Every year when the season was over, he would go back to St. Louis. He would sell used cars over the winter because he needed extra money to live. But he became very successful, obviously, as a manager with the Orioles. He was an old-fashioned baseball manager. He didn't use computers. He didn't use a lot of statistics. He kind of managed by his gut feeling. And he did things sometimes that people didn't think were great baseball strategy, but for him, it worked out. Earl Weaver is still, his baseball style is still very prevalent because he was a guy who believed in the 3-run homer. Hitting home runs was a very important part of baseball. One of the things the book says, and I think was just very important, was he ruled at a time when the good managers lorded over their teams with guts, instinct, personality, and individual philosophy, before the data-centric guys with their spreadsheets took over so much of the decision-making. This is a great baseball book. I read a lot of baseball books. I don't get to read. By the way, both of these books have been reviewed on Bookreporter. Ron Kaplan, who does a lot of the baseball books for Bookreporter, did the Last Manager. Yours truly did the football book. But very good books. And seriously, if you have a sports fan on your list and you're looking for a book, either one of these would be very, very good for them.
That's great. I'm a huge Patrick Mahomes fan right now, just because I like the way the guy runs as well as throws. I mean, he's not having anybody catching as well as they should be this year, so it's not going to be going that great. And you think about Tom Brady, who was like what pick? Not first in the draft.
140, yeah.
140, blah, blah, blah. What he went on to do with his career. And one quick anecdote. We grew up with the Tripucka family in Bloomfield, and Frank Tripucka was brought out to Denver. He's playing up in Canada. He's brought out to Denver, and they wanted him to coach. And he went out as a coach, and they didn't have a quarterback. And the Broncos were in danger Denver was in danger of not having a football team because they couldn't get their act together. So they asked Frank if he would quarterback. Okay. Frank went out and quarterbacked through the first touchdown in the AFL. Okay. This is like craziness. Went on to do that. He was wearing number 18. Years go by. What happens? Peyton Manning is going to the Broncos. What number has he always worn? 18. What does he want to be able to do? It's like, can I wear that again? So he actually calls my friend TK at his house to see what his father will do. And TK said he's watching TV and he sees Peyton Manning come up on his television, like the phone number coming in. And Peyton says, is this really okay? I won't do it unless I speak with your father. And his father was then 80-something years old. He goes, why do I care? Let him wear my number. But Peyton insisted on talking to him. And I think that there are interesting baseball stories about, just who these people are besides the people they are on the field, like what it is off the field that ends up mattering. Some of them are the bad boys, some of them the Joe Namath of the world and stuff. But it's really interesting where some of these people come out of nowhere and they become these really big players. So that's my thoughts on quarterback.
And the other side is also true. Some of them are come out of college and they're the greatest ever, and 6 months later they're
gone
working in grocery stores.
Yes, that's exactly. Or they get hurt.
That's why
again.
You never know in the draft. You never know who's gonna, where they pick. It's like you just never know when you get into the NFL and when you're playing with the big boys.
The Giants could just keep a quarterback, I'll take it. Tom, you're up next.
All right. Yeah. Thank you so much,
Thanks,
Stuart. Great to have you with us. So our next guest is Sarah Rachel Egelman. Sarah lives in New Mexico, where she's a professor of religion and humanities. She also works and teaches in the Albuquerque Jewish community. She enjoys writing, knitting, spending time outdoors, and especially reading.
And
Sarah, great to have you back with us.
It's wonderful to be here. Thanks for having me. I'll just jump in. I have two books like everybody else. My first book is gorgeous cover, Idle Grounds by Crystal Bamford. So this is a debut novel, and it takes place over the course of just a single day in the 1980s, where a large family has gathered for a birthday party on their family's property. So there's a group of young cousins ranging from like preschool to early teens, and they're running around the property and exploring the house and the grounds. And then the youngest amongst them, Abby, who's just 3, goes missing. So all the cousins sort of organize a search party led by the oldest cousin, Travis, who is Abby's big brother. And they're worried, but also having this adventure. And this is all happening without any of the parents being aware of what's going on. So there's sort of a disconnect between the lives that the adults are living physically close by, but sort of mentally and emotionally distant from the kids. But as the day goes on, this sort of dreamy mystery adventure turns nightmarish because Travis also goes missing. So panic ensues. It's a short novel and it sort of ramps up really quickly. It's very disconcerting all along, really digging into these family complexities, themes of like memory and perception and identity, and especially brought home because Bamford uses a collective first person. So the narrator says we, it's all we. So you never know which cousin is actually telling the story. It is a single narrator, but speaking in a collective voice. So it really casts sort of light into this idea of their kids and the autonomy that they have or don't have as the story unfolds. It's really weird and really gorgeous, and it was unlike anything I read this year and really promising debut. So highly recommend Idle Grounds by Crystal Bamford. That's my first. My second book, and I'm super excited to talk about this one, is A Marriage at Sea by Sophie Elmhurst. So this one is another slim book that, like the Bamford book, packs a ton in. This is nonfiction, and it is a sort of survival adventure story, which is not a genre that I normally read, and I'm so glad that I read this one. This is the book that I've told everyone about this year. No matter what they like to read, I think this is the book that I recommended to absolutely everyone. I couldn't stop talking about it, and I spent a lot of time after I finished reading it Googling about the story and learning as much as I could. So it is set mostly in 1972. It is a true story of a British couple, Maurice and Marilyn Bailey, who have decided to sort of get out of their mundane lives. They don't want to live an ordinary life. They want a life of adventure. And they take years planning to go on this epic sailing trip around the world. They eventually want to get to Australia and settle there, but they want to see as much as they can on the high seas on their way. So they customize the sailboat, they learn everything they can about sailing, and they set off, and everything obviously starts lovely. They meet people, they see beautiful things, and then as they are in really the middle of nowhere sailing towards the Galapagos, their boat is capsized by a dying whale. So the survival part of the story takes over from the adventure part of the story, and they survive. I don't even want to give away for how long. It's truly astonishing in an inflatable sort of life raft dinghy for a very, very long time before they are rescued. And that's the meat of the story, which I again hesitate to describe because it's if it wasn't nonfiction, I would think it was an outrageous, made up story. And it does go into the rescue and the end of their lives and the consequences of this adventure that they have. But it's really beautifully written, astonishing story of this couple taking deep care of each other in unbelievable and disastrous circumstances. So, really, really recommended that one. Again, A Marriage at Sea by Sophie Elmhurst. Both these books were great, and I appreciate getting to talk about them tonight. So, thanks.
And Sarah, it's so great to see you again. I got the chance to spend a day with her years ago now in Albuquerque. We had the best time. And I want you to know that the yarn I have is still here. Like I still have not knit anything. We went to yarn shops and we had such a good time. But I kind of like overindulge and I did that once again. But it's always from a place and I look at the yarn and I say that's where it's from, as much as I didn't knit anything with it yet.
And it's the promise of something beautiful in the future.
I said, oh, that's good. I'm going to remind my husband of that one. The promise. There's a lot of promise over there, Tom. Thanks
Yeah,
again.
you come back and get some more promise. Come
I would
visit.
love that.
All right.
I'd love it. Thanks again.
Thanks.
Thank you so much, Sarah.
Oh, I'm up. Oh, it's like my turn again. Okay. Now we hear from Megan Elliott. Megan is originally from the Chicago area and currently lives in Southern California. I guess she wanted better weather, where she works for an entertainment news website and she spends her days watching and writing about TV. Ooh, I love that. Though she prefers reading, of course. So welcome. So good to have you with us.
Hi, thank you. Just realized I was on mute.
Hi,
Yeah,
Megan.
it's
Great
been
to see
so
you.
wonderful hearing about everybody's picks this year. My to-read list is getting longer. So I have two novels, both of which I reviewed for Book Reporter this year. And the first is The Pretender by Jo Harkin. This is a historical novel. It's set in the Tudor era, which is a very obviously well-covered, very popular period to write about. But she really is able, I think, to approach it in a unique way with a unique and kind of untold, at least to me, story. It's a book about Lambert Simnel. He's the main character, the narrator, who's a real historical figure. He was a pretender to the throne during the reign of Henry VII. Not much is really known about the real Lambert. So she is really able to creatively fill in the gaps of his story and kind of like create this very just engaging and fascinating like journey through this very tumultuous period in history at the end of the War of the Roses, where there's all this sort of jockeying for power and people still trying to kind of like get their guys back on the throne and everything. So when we first meet him, Lambert, he's known as John. He's 10 years old. He's the son of a farmer and he's living this very modest life. And then all of a sudden these guys show up at the farm and they're like, guess what? You are Edward Plantagenet. You are the Earl of Warwick. You are the nephew of Edward IV, and we're going to take you away to Oxford and tutor you to become king because, there's this illegitimate king on the throne. And then it kind of just goes through there. We go from Oxford to France to Ireland, back to England. Eventually he ends up in the court of Henry VII. It's just all of this stuff happens. There's all these amazing like adventures, wonderful side characters. She does a really great job of using period appropriate language, but in a really funny way. Like if you are interested in 15th century insults and off-color humor, like this book has it in spades. But it's also really a really moving book about identity because he doesn't know who he is. Like this whole event that happens when he's 10 really just, he has no idea if he really is possibly a royal or if this is all just a plot. He's being used as this pawn by all these powerful figures. So I don't want to give away how it ends, but it's almost 500 pages. It's fairly long, but it goes very fast. It's just a really interesting and moving and touching and funny book. So if you are interested, I'm not a big historical fiction reader actually, but I really, really enjoyed this book. I thought it was just really great. And then my second book is Deep Cuts by Holly Brickley. And this is one that really spoke to me as a elder millennial, indie rock loving, former college radio DJ. That's probably a very narrow slice of the population. But I think it's a book about popular music and how popular music kind of speaks to you when you're young and kind of like provides the soundtrack to your life, I would say, among other things. But I think if you're anyone who liked music when you were young or growing up or loves music now, this is a book that I think will have something that you can relate to, even if you don't know the music that she's talking about. But it's about a woman named Percy, and we meet her when she's in college at UC Berkeley, and she's kind of like an outsider. She doesn't really fit in. She works at a record store. She's got super strong. She's a music nerd. She's got super strong opinions about music, and but she's not a musician herself. Like she doesn't really see herself as a creative in that way. And she meets another student whose name is Joe, and he is a musician, and they strike up this friendship and creative partnership where she helps him with his songwriting. And then the rest of the book follows Percy through like roughly the next 10 years until she's about 30-ish. Starts in 2001, right before September 11th. And her kind of ongoing relationship with Joe, this sort of push and pull of their creative dynamic as she's working with him, trying to establish herself as a writer, as a creative person, trying to figure out what's going on. There's a romantic tension because there's this attraction, but they don't want to both ruin the way they work together and also their friendship. So that's like this underlying thing. If you're a friends to lovers person, if you like, it's not a romance, but if you like that trope in romance, this is the book that might appeal to you. So yeah, it's just, she does a really great job of writing about being young, about writing about music, which is really hard, I think, to write convincingly about music. And I think she does it pretty well. It's engaging. If you have any interest in the early 2000s, millennial nostalgia, I think this is a fun book. If there's someone in your life who is, in their late 30s, early 40s, who was young during that time, this might be a book that they would enjoy as a gift. I really enjoyed it. And of course, there's a Spotify playlist if you want to listen along to all the songs. Each chapter is named after a song. So you kind of get a little path through that period of music history too. So
I like we're doing
like
the
a really
gift
fun
giving.
book.
I like we're working on the gift giving tonight. This is really good. Here's your list. Here's what you can be giving everybody. Here you go.
You might have the holidays under control, but no, there are going to be some more books that you might want to get for yourself or for, your friends or family.
Okay, Sam, now I have to go find the video, so give me a second.
All right. Well,
It's
thank you
always
so much, Megan. Appreciate it. Yeah, we're going to be sharing a video in a little bit from Ray Palen, who unfortunately couldn't be here with us. And just a little bit about Ray before we start the video. Ray is an award-winning actor, drama teacher, and former executive producer director for 15 plus years of a highly successful regional theater group that is still based on Long Island. He is also a published playwright with several short stories being registered with the Writers Guild of America. He is currently starring in the top murder mystery dinner theater show in Orlando, which is why he couldn't be with us tonight. The Speakeasy Murder and Other Acts of Prohibition is the name of the show, and he continues to teach drama and improv. So we had Ray present his two books in a video, and so we're going to be showing that to you.
Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
You can see my screen? Okay, sorry. Oops, hold on one second. I'm going to go back to the beginning. I'm sorry. We'll edit this part.
No problem.
Hello, book reporter friends. This is Ray Palen. I'm so sorry to not be there live. I really look forward to this event each year. But as I shared with Tom, I'm acting in a murder mystery dinner theater here in Orlando, and we're currently doing our holiday version of the show, which means I've got 30 shows in 30 days. So a little tired, but always time to read. I did want to briefly introduce two of my favorite books of the year. I've read over 250 books this year, so I know it's always a task for me to narrow it down to a top 20, let alone a top 2. So I've selected 2. I want to preface with the first one, which I picked as my number 2 book, may not necessarily be my second favorite book of the year, but as I was looking at my list of top-rated reviews this year. This title just jumped out at me, so I'm going to begin with this one. And it's Don't Let Him In by British author Lisa Jewell. I've been reading Lisa Jewell from the start, and I've always found her work to be good, sometimes very good. This one blew me away. And again, as I was looking as my list of books, the title jumped out at me because she went to some dark places in this book, which sounds like it might be a story you've heard before. A woman who recently lost her husband tragically meets a new young man who's fascinating and gets matched up with him, and things seem to be going well. But her daughter's suspicious of this new man in their life named Nick. And she starts doing some research, and as it turns out, Nick may be a polygamist and may have not only marriages, but also different affairs as well as relationships with women all over England. And she not only gets together with some of the women who also know him under different names, but as they try to work together to bring him down, some unexpected things happen, some twists that I didn't even see coming. Again, it's a story about a true sociopath, very diabolical character, by far Lisa Jewell's best novel, and one that just could not get out of my head. So that's my number two. My number one book of the year, and this is clearly my favorite this year, is Fair Play by Louise Hegarty, Irish author, her very first novel, one that I'm sure many readers out there have never heard of or even seen before. So I'm hoping that my video encourages you to seek this out. If you're a fan of mystery novels, this is not to be missed. If you are not necessarily a mystery fan, but just someone who likes cleverly plotted novels or things that are a little bit different than your standard novel, this is the book for you. This is a traditional locked room murder mystery that the way Fair Play is written by Hegarty completely deconstructs the entire concept and framework of a mystery novel. She actually includes in chapters discussing elements of mystery novels, including red herrings. Yet the second half of this novel is set up like a murder mystery play with a list of characters. There's many meta moments. There's even a part at the end where she throws it to the readers to decide who they think the killer is. And then she gives a different ending via a new chapter at the end, whereby each possible suspect is made the guilty party. It's just brilliant. It's unbelievably conceived. And when you get to the very end, the biggest trick of all and the biggest surprise for me was when I realized it's not really a mystery novel, but rather a novel about death and grief, and one that completely fascinated me and I will never forget. So my favorite novel of the year. So there we go. Louise Hegarty, Fair Play. Lisa Jewell, Don't Let Him In. Miss everybody. Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and thank you.
Go. We just stop sharing.
Great job there with the sharing, Carol.
Oh my gosh, that's a miracle. We'll have to edit a little bit, but I was close. I was close.
Yeah, absolutely.
I will tell you,
we really appreciate Ray taking the time to do that. And you may not have heard a lot about Fair Play beforehand, but he really makes you, interested in the book and want to read that one.
I listened to Lisa Jewell's Don't Let Him In over the last, I think 2 or 3 weeks. It is really good. And you're like, who is this guy and what is he pulling off? And it's crazy to hear how much he pulls off.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Tom, you're on with Kate.
Yes. So also Kate Ayers was not able to join us tonight. We don't have a video from her, but we still wanted to let you know about her picks. So first, here's a little bit about Kate. She retired from a career as a court reporter in the Pacific Northwest and now enjoys the bulk of her time traveling and writing. She has completed 9 novels in her Mysteries with a Wine List series, her Eyes and Ears series, and has recently finished a standalone No Shelter from the Storm. She lives with her husband of over 40 years and 2 ill-behaved dogs. So Kate's first pick is The Tin Men by Nelson DeMille and Alex DeMille, which is the 3rd book in their Scott Brody and Maggie Taylor series. And here's what Kate said about the book in her review. She reviewed both of these books for us. Here's what she said about The Tin Men. In his long and prolific writing career, the incomparable Nelson DeMille gave his readers a library of many excellent books. He was a master of espionage novels, thrillers, and suspense. It will be hard to go on without Nelson, who passed away last year after a 9-month battle with esophageal cancer. In the last several years, he brought in his son, Alex DeMille, to write with him, which has made the stories even better. Sadly, though, The Tin Man is Nelson's final gift to us, but what a wonderful gift it is. I hope that Alex will continue to follow in his father's footsteps. Sure, he has some big shoes to fill, but I'm confident he will succeed. And Kate is a huge Nelson DeMille fan, so it's saying a lot when she's like, okay, this is like a great book, and Alex, this like the story is even better than his others.
And it
So that's
actually
saying a
talks
lot.
a lot about these people that are tin men that are created, that are sort of like AI kind of generated kind of things. And the funny part is Nelson, who writes in longhand, wrote in longhand on yellow legal pads, was the one that came up with the idea. And he went and, followed the story from there. I have an interview with Alex that I encourage you to listen to because it talks about their writing relationship and also what Alex did to actually go to an army base to figure out parts of the story. So that's up in one of our book reporter talks to interviews. And he did a really good job of not only sharing what he did working with his dad, but also how he picked up the pieces as time went on.
Yep, absolutely. And Kate's second pick is Mitch Albom's latest book, Twice, which was a Good Morning America book club pick when it released in October. And it poses the very interesting question, what if you got to do everything in your life twice? And so Kate says this about the book in her review. Twice is a book that comes around once in a lifetime. It will touch your heart in ways that only a story from Mitch Albom can. It is heartbreaking, heartwarming, charming, and wise, plus so much more. Albom is an unparalleled storyteller. No one can come even close to the man's talent. He reaches down to the depths of human emotions and then digs far deeper. Whatever you do, don't miss this gem.
I
So
love
those
that.
were
I love the
Kate's
way she
two
shares her
picks.
stories. I love the way
Mhm.
she shares with us. It's really, really good.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, those are our reviewer picks.
Our favorite picks. And I saw somewhere in the chat what somebody said they were trying to get books from their library and they were unable to get them. And someone made a comment that I want to expound upon. The libraries are having trouble getting books because Baker and Taylor, which was a huge supplier to libraries, is going out of business. They went, I think it was bankrupt or whatever. And as a result, libraries getting books is a big challenge right now. So when you go into a library, feel free to say what you're looking for because there has been a lag on what's been able to be delivered because the other people can't pick up everything that's been going on. And I was out with a number of librarian marketing people for dinner a couple of weeks ago, and they were all talking about how hard this is a really big problem right now. So if you're having trouble getting something in the library, no, it's sometimes not the library's fault, but that's what's going on. So back to our program. I want to say thank you to all our reviewer guests who joined us both live and on video. I raise a glass to toast them. I should have a glass here. It's a
Yes, I'm
joy
gonna
each
fill your
week to
glass.
share their reviews with our readers. We're going to follow up an email with a link to this presentation as both a video and a podcast in case you want to view it again or share it with other book loving friends. And we'd love if you would do that. If you would share it with other book lovers, we know women's magazines have gone away. A lot of ways of trying to find out about books have gone away. And we're really working each week to try to make sure that we get books on your radar. So do that. Next week, we will be bringing our annual reviewer picks feature on Book Reporter. The reviewers you heard from tonight, plus many others, will share up to 20 of their favorite books of the year. Also, next week, by the end of this week, beginning next week, I'm going to shoot my 42 Book Reporter bets on selections. I'm going to talk about the 42 books that I really love this year, and we'll be bringing those to you in a video as well. A reminder that our next Bookaccino Live book preview event will be on Wednesday, January 14th at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And we'll be covering books from January 13th through February 3rd, looking ahead to March. I can't even believe this. And sign up is already available on Book Reporter. Please keep in mind we have more than 230 Book Reporter Talks to interviews available on our YouTube channel and wherever you listen to podcasts. And our book channel is the Book Report Network. You couldn't get Book Reporter, long story. To stay on top of what we're doing at the Book Report Network, including the events and contests, which we do a lot of, we will be doing our year-end contest. Somebody will win all 42 of my bets on selections, and then some will win some of my selections. And I have all these books at my house that my husband would really like to get sent out. So be sure to be doing that. Sign up for the Book Reporter and Reading Group Guides newsletters. And to never miss an event, we have our events newsletter. Also, all the events that we do can be found at TBR Network. You sign up for the newsletters, TBR Network /newsletters. We also list all our events at tbrnetwork.com/events. So here's wishing you all a very happy holiday and a huge thanks to Tom Donadio, our amazing editorial director. Tom has worked on all 650 of those reviews that came in this year. He has gone through catalogs to discuss what books we should be trying to get reviewed. He is making sure the correct reviewer, the best reviewer, is there for each of the titles that is coming out that we want to make sure that we review. He assigns, he edits, and then after that, Tom makes sure that everything looks amazing in the newsletter. This is not me, this is Tom. So I want you all to take your hats off to him because he is really, the Book Reporter would not be what it is without him. Everybody thinks it's me, it's him.
Thanks so much. I really appreciate it. And I've enjoyed all 23 years of my being here. I'm looking forward to
23 years of that, 23 years. And he's been amazing all along the way. So to all of you, thank you. Happy holidays. And look, we're getting ready for 2026. We've been looking at books already, a lot of them, and we're just ready. So thanks to Tom, thanks to all of our reviewers, and thanks to all of you for being readers of ours. We really appreciate you.
Many thanks to our reviewers, yes. And thank you to everybody for joining us, and have a great rest of the holiday season.
And we'll be reading for 2026. Here we go. Yeah. Thanks, Tom. Okay,
Absolutely.
Talk to you soon.
Thanks, Carol. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks for all your comments in the chat, too. We love it. Absolutely love it.